The night my brother tried to stand up and call me a liar in front of half the town was the night he realized I had been telling the truth the entire time. My name is Heather Merrill, and for almost 3 years my own family treated me like I was a problem that needed managing, instead of a daughter who had survived something terrible. I'm 34 now. I live alone in a small ranch-style duplex about 20 minutes from where I grew up. It's quiet, predictable, safe, which is more than I can say for my childhood home. If you've ever been the difficult one in your family, you'll understand this. You know that feeling when everyone smiles at you a little too tightly? When conversations stop the second you enter the room? Yeah, that. 3 years ago, I was in a crash on County Road 12. That's the official version. Heather lost control on a curve. That's what the report said. That's what my father repeated at church. That's what Nolan told his friends. I woke up in a hospital bed with a spinal injury and a story already written about me. The only problem? It wasn't the whole story. I remember headlights. Bright. Too high to be a sedan. I remember the impact from the side, not the front. I remember trying to breathe and tasting blood, and then nothing. When I tried to explain that there had been another vehicle, Nolan squeezed my hand and said, "You were unconscious, Heath. You don't know that." My dad's version was simpler. You've always been a nervous driver. After a while, you start to question yourself. I did. I hate admitting that. But when the 3 people who raised you all nod in agreement that you're mistaken, you start thinking, maybe I am? Except I'm a paralegal. Paperwork is my job. And paperwork doesn't care about feelings. 2 years after the crash, when my insurance denied coverage for a new chair, I requested my full accident file. Not the summary my dad's friend at the sheriff's office handed over. The complete file. It took weeks. I followed up politely, persistently. I know how to sound calm in emails. It unsettles people. When the envelope finally came, I sat at my kitchen table staring at it for a full minute before opening it. My hands were shaking, and not because of the nerve damage. The patrol report was thin. Too thin. No diagram of impact angle. No mention of paint transfer testing. Just, driver lost control. But buried in supplemental attachments was a line that made my stomach flip. Witness reported possible second vehicle leaving scene. Possible. Not impossible. Not ruled out. Possible. That witness? Walt Whitfield. 82. Retired mechanic. Lives 3 blocks from my childhood home. I drove to see him the next day. He answered the door in slippers and said, "You're Raymond's girl." "Yes, sir," I said. "And I think you saw something that night." We sat at his kitchen table, and he told me he'd come over the rise on County 12 and seen a dark pickup pulled off the shoulder. Said it lingered a few seconds after the crash. Said he jotted down part of the plate. He handed that number to the responding officer. Nobody ever followed up. I went home and stared at the ceiling that night thinking about my father's trucking company. 11 rigs, including Nolan's dark gray pickup he practically worshipped. 3 days after my accident, Nolan's truck had been in Dale Ostrander's body shop. I didn't know that yet, but I would. Here's the thing about small towns. Receipts exist, even when people think cash erases them. I hired Daniel Coleman, a steady, unimpressed attorney who didn't blink when I told him I suspected my own brother. He nodded and said, "Let's follow the paper." Within a month we had it. An invoice from Ostrander Auto Body dated 72 hours after my crash. Left front quarter panel replacement. Full repaint. Paid in cash. Customer, Nolan Merrill. Payment made by Raymond Merrill. My father, I remember sitting in Coleman's office, the hum of the old air conditioner buzzing overhead, staring at that receipt. It felt like watching your childhood burn in slow motion. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't confused. I had been hit, and they knew it. Detective Pewitt reopened the investigation quietly. She told me to say nothing. "Let them think you've let it go," she said. That part, I was good at. Then came Nolan's engagement party at Carlton Lake Lodge. Cream invitations, string lights, 60 guests. My mother personally called to make sure the ramp would be manageable, as if that was the only obstacle between us. I almost didn't go, but something in me wanted to be present when the lie cracked. The night was warm. The lake was still. Nolan was glowing with charm, shaking hands, laughing too loudly. My father was near the bar, holding court like always. I stayed near the window, sparkling water in hand, watching. During the toasts, Nolan said, "And my sister Heather, who's had a tough few years." The pause was pointed. The sympathy rehearsed. Later, one of Bree's cousins leaned over and asked kindly, "Was it really just you in the car?" I answered honestly, "No, someone hit me." Nolan heard. His smile vanished. "You're still on that?" he snapped, loud enough to turn heads. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused him. I just stood by the truth. "She needs attention," Nolan announced, laughing in that brittle way. "She's been spinning this fantasy for years." The room shifted. "You could feel it," I said calmly. "There's an open investigation, Nolan." His face drained of color. And then, because pride and alcohol are a dangerous mix, he grabbed the handles of my chair and shoved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie scene. It was quick and ugly. The chair tipped. I hit the floor. And that's when everything changed. Not because I cried. I didn't. I rolled to my side, steadied my breathing, and said clearly, "You just assaulted a disabled woman in front of 60 witnesses." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Somewhere behind me I heard someone say, "Call 911. My father rushed forward, hissing, "This is a misunderstanding." But it wasn't anymore. When the police arrived, I handed them Detective Puett's card. I mentioned the reopened case. I mentioned the body shop invoice. You could see it happening. The story unraveling in real time. Walt Whitfield stepped forward from the crowd and said, "I saw that truck leave." Bree removed her engagement ring quietly, set it on a linen napkin, didn't say a word. Nolan wasn't arrested that night for the old crash. That took months. But he was detained for assault, and that was enough to open every door he'd tried to nail shut. The investigation proved what I already knew. Nolan hit my car after drifting over the center line. He panicked. Dad panicked harder. They chose the company over me. Nolan eventually took a plea deal for leaving the scene of an accident causing serious injury. My father faced obstruction charges for tampering with evidence. Merrill Hauling lost its big contract anyway. Funny how that works. People ask me if it felt good. Honestly, it felt quiet, like closing a heavy door and finally stepping into fresh air. I still live in my duplex. I upgraded my chair. I kept my job. I kept my sanity. I lost my family. But here's the part nobody tells you. Sometimes losing people who never protected you is not a loss. It's a release. If you've ever been told to stay silent for the family, hear me. Protecting a lie will never heal you. Keeping records might. I stopped begging to be believed. I started documenting, and that changed everything. If this story hit somewhere deep for you, if you've been the one they tried to rewrite, subscribe to Her Untold Revenge. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that calm truth is more powerful than loud denial. And remember, just because they say it didn't happen doesn't mean you imagined it. Sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one holding all the evidence.